John, it's quite a day. You've got asteroids, you've got chickens. I could not get the AI to, I think the developer of this AI must be some kind of like Scotch snob because it would only give you a neat Scotch. And I think that's something that you got to be, right? You're not supposed to have it on the rocks or something if you're an expert at Scotch. Quite a day. You've got asteroids, you've got chickens. Where's that sound coming from? The AI, I think the developer of this AI, that's you, like Scotch snob because. Can you kill that? You got it. You good?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
That was my browser. I had the browser open.
No problem. Anyway, making just a little AI and Scotch.
Yeah, I take my Scotch on the rocks. I don't take it neat. So I need ice in there. So, but this is great, man. The quality of these images is just ridiculous. It's like, again, if you had to hire an art department to do this, this would just be. Yeah,
never.
I mean, it's just
just what's going on in this scene. I used to have, at 21st Century 3D, digital artists who, with Lightwave 3D and Maya would create stuff like this. It would take a week to create a shot like this, and you just would never do it. And the capability is really something else. I think I've got to, in some other forum, do some AI shows to help people understand what's going on here. But today, we're going to talk about asteroids and chickens. What have you got in store for us, Mr. Cullen? And by the way, welcome back to the Van Dyke.
Indeed. Well, I had to match the thumbnail, so I just put a little bit back on. So a hell of a week as far as news. We've had the bird flu, this avian flu, has been in the news, not just about chickens now, but now they're talking about cattle. They're talking about all kinds of stuff. So that was in the news. And then something happened in the last 24 hours that became kind of a bit of a sensation on Twitter. And I tweeted something out that now has 2.5 million views on Twitter. And it has since been sort of readdressed, and we'll take a look at that in the show. But today's also a really important day, and so we're going to be taking a closer look with our patrons. When we go to the patron-only portion of the show, we have some video that we're going to be sharing with the patrons, and you'll tell everybody where to go in a minute, but when we go to that part of the show, we are going to be looking at JPL, which is Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA at Caltech, and they have been tracking a particular asteroid called Apophis, and this asteroid is due to arrive 5 years from tomorrow.
Wait, there's one other thing I needed to tell you. AI.
What's that?
Well, when I wanted to create this image, I said, Cullen is sitting in a dimpled leather chair in an oak library, enjoying a scotch in a classic tumbler as an earth-killing asteroid is seen outside in the window. And it was like, nah. And this is an open source one that doesn't usually say no. This will make Trump and Biden and all that stuff. Lots of the tools will refuse that. And this was not down with making an image of an earth-killing asteroid. It's almost like courting a woman. You've got to convince it and massage the language carefully to get it to, cajole and coax the little AI out of its hiding place there.
How far ahead was Alex Garland with Ex Machina, right?
Yeah.
And the conversation with the AI basically, and man, how manipulative it can be, and it's going to get.
Right, that movie, right? I forgot about that. It's beyond just.
He's the guy from Civil War. He's the guy who's putting out Civil War, which is getting a lot of attention right now.
And it's beyond just art, because I've been using it to research things and do cases and whatever. And I was just in the apartment the other day talking to this thing and learning stuff from it. I was like, my God, this is like Blade Runner. And it's sort of like a cross between Batman, and so I got the Bat Cave there. And I asked it to give me Rick Deckard's apartment. Notice what I'm evaluating here. Can you make that out? This is the full duplex radio telephone The patent.
I was just going to say that looks like the patent for from what is it, George Webb Swigert or something?
George
The
Henry
father?
Swigert.
Henry, right? George Henry Swigert, the father, who it basically patented the two-way duplex radio, which is this ability that
The
you and I
radio
have to
telephone, the cordless telephone, where you can speak
which
and
we
listen.
used to have in the kitchen, right? I used to have one of those in the kitchen, and the whole big deal was you didn't have to push the button to talk,
Right.
and you didn't have to say over at the end, right? You say, okay, so bing, da bing, da bing, da bing, over,
Right.
and then it's to you, right? And then back to you, and then you unpush the button. And
I think that's where Hawkins got the over to you thing from, is that type of radio community. But the full duplex, we'll talk about this in a future show because we've got so much stuff to discuss. But just one last thing on AI. I've been creating all these funny cartoons of the different people who are trolling Crowdsource the truth and doing all kinds of stuff. And this was created with traditional AI prompts. Give me a cartoon scene of a radio operator in World War II in Guadalcanal and blah, blah, blah. And I have techniques for creating these caricatures of people. Then I stuck George Henry in there. But then I just had the most amazing discovery this week where I found a tool where I can take the cartoon and basically tell it, hey, give me a photorealistic scene based on the cartoon. Look at that.
That's amazing. That's
Isn't
crazy.
That crazy?
So it generates a looking photo from a cartoon.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, it gave me just a random military officer, and I used traditional Photoshop techniques to put that face in there. But it's amazing what these tools can do.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, we've got a lot of content I want to share with the YouTube audience before we go over to the patron-only portion, where we've got a bunch of videos that we're going to be looking at and some 3D models and things like that. But again, today is an important day because 5 years from tomorrow, Apophis gets here. And that's kind of a big deal, right? So
it's definitely, but we don't know if it's going to hit, right?
No, we don't. Well, and according to the projections, it's supposed to miss.
Good.
But in the past, their projections have been off by a significant amount, and that's why I'm a little bit more nervous than you might think. So again, I got 5 years. It's again, I'm an old guy. I've had a great life. So if I make it 5 more years, I'm thrilled. What are you kidding? I'll be lucky to make it 2 more years. All right, so let's take a look at the slides I've got in the deck because I got so much content here.
Yeah.
All right. So very excited about the upcoming book.
Birds of a Feather. Wait, the name is changing every week, it seems.
Well, yeah, it's a working title, right? So each week we switch to a different type of working title. But Birds of a Feather, and it's a story, of a chicken that grew up and always really wanted to be a bat, kind of identified as a bat, didn't really know what to do about it because never really identified as a chicken, and then had this opportunity to become a bat. That's a real.
I have a title suggestion.
Yeah, what's that?
Tastes like chicken.
That was 2 weeks ago. We had.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
We had that. No wonder you came up with a suggestion. Yeah, because it was 2 weeks ago.
Funny idea.
All right, so let's go to the next slide. So one of the big stories this week about bird flu is that it was found in New York City. And the place it was found in New York City was Marcus Garvey Park. And for those of you who've never lived in New York City, Marcus Garvey Park's at 122nd Street and 5th Avenue, which is smack dab in the middle of Harlem. Right, so most people think of Harlem as 125th Street. Marcus Garvey Park's on 122nd Street. It's 3 blocks south, and it's on 5th Avenue, and it's right in the middle of 5th Avenue, meaning if you were heading south on 5th Avenue from 138th Street, 136th Street, when you get to 123rd, boom, there's Marcus Garvey Park. So it's in the middle of 5th Avenue, so it just blocks traffic. And it's in Harlem. And according to the story by Natalie O'Neill, they found bird flu in Marcus Garvey Park. Now, the funny thing about the story is, according to the story, they found bird flu in a peregrine falcon in Marcus Garvey Park, and they found it in a chicken in Marcus Garvey Park,
What is a
and they
chicken
found
doing there?
that's kind of was my twist was a peregrine falcon was in Harlem and a
I think they
chicken.
have that, like owls and falcons and stuff, but how did a chicken get there?
Dude, a peregrine falcon? Peregrine falcon's like the 250-mile-an-hour bird. It's a kind of a
Hmm,
special falcon. It's not like they're just everywhere. And
I
there's one
see.
in Harlem, and they caught it, and they tested it. Really? You caught the peregrine falcon in Harlem, and you were able to swab its butt. I'm incredibly impressed by that. And a hawk, and a chicken, and two geese. Well, the geese, okay. It's like if you told me it was two geese, I'd say okay. When you add in the peregrine falcon and the chicken, what's a chicken doing
Well, so what do you think
in
that means?
Harlem? I'm wondering who generated the story. And when I sent a tweet to Natalie O'Neill on Twitter, she said, "Look, I'm in the midst of a conspiracy now." I'm like, no, I just find it a little bit odd that they caught a peregrine falcon in Harlem and a chicken at 122nd Street. But let's not get too caught up in the details here, all right? But this was just one of the stories this week. And the big thing is that bird flu is in the news this week. And they're talking about avian flu in beef, in cattle. And that was a new twist. And a lot of people are like, why? What the hell? What's this all about? And we've got some very interesting news to get to on that. So let's forge ahead. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So one of the big things that happened in the last 24 hours was something came across my desk in the Twitter world, and it was map-based data. And it's from a system called, I don't know how to pronounce it, if it's Ventusky or Ventusky, but it's ventusky.com. And when I saw what I saw, well, my bias, okay, the things that I've been through in the last couple of years, immediately took me to this document, the Near Earth Preparedness Strategy and Action Plan.
What is it? Bend over and kiss
So,
your ass goodbye.
well, this is what does the government do when the government believes we've got inbound NEOs, asteroids or what have you. And they've got a plan. They've updated the plan since this plan. And back, if you go to the next slide, if we go back 4 years ago in April, all hell was breaking loose. We had NEOs coming in inside the distance of the moon. We call it an LD, one lunar distance is 250,000 miles, and that's a distance to the moon. So if an asteroid is inside that distance, that's called a sub 1 LD asteroid. And that's NEO, near Earth object. And those are the ones in red. So the ones in red are the ones that are inside the moon, right? And that means they're getting kind of close.
Inside the distance of the moon, you mean? Between
correct.
the moon and the Earth.
Yeah. Right. Between the moon and the Earth as far as the distance. So if the distance from the moon to the Earth is 250,000 miles, these are 100,000 miles, 125,000, 80,000, 50,000, right? So they're closer than the moon. And those are the ones that are of concern. If it's 400,000 miles away, that's not that big a concern, right? It's pretty straightforward. And this is what was happening in the April timeframe of 2020, which makes that whole conversation about the field hospitals and all that not a theory, right? It's based on data, right? So we're looking at data telling us there's a ton of asteroids in that time frame. And so that's consistent with that. So you forge ahead to the next slide. And last week with our patrons, we got to watch a video of NASA discovering more and more and more of these things over time, to the point that at the end, you're like, really? It's like, how does the Earth even get through here? This is like bugs on the windshield at night in Alabama. If you ever driven across, well, you've driven across the country, and at nighttime you get the lights on. Oh my God, the bugs that accumulate on your front bumper. It's kind of what it feels like, is that we're flying blind at night with the lights on, and we just keep getting bugs in the teeth, and there's not much we can do about it. And that's kind of what it looks like when we ran the simulation and we saw how many new asteroids there are. Well, if you go to the next slide, 4 years ago, these asteroids were converging on Earth. And if you go to the next slide, we looked at animation with Shepard Ambellis last week that basically changed the world. I mean, this was effectively an animation that they may have shown the president on March 10th that changed everything, because the field hospitals only stood for 10 days. Right. So one of the reasons I think YouTube is getting a newfound like for our broadcast is because we're exposing some of these cover-ups that were during the Trump administration.
I don't think they like the broadcasts at all.
No, the fact when we expose Trump covered up this, Trump covered up that, they're like, that's interesting. Hold on.
They don't know what to do.
Yet. Don't hit the button, Tommy. Don't hit the button. Hang on. I want to hear this. So when we tell people that Trump covered this up and that the field hospital stood for 10 days and he was not honest with the public about that. Now, for whatever reason, right, I'm not here to make excuses for the guy. I'm here to report what happened. That's it. It's a journalism thing. So we see this data. This is not something I came up with. This is, like you said, I didn't use Maya to create this. This is from the Sky Live, and I don't trust them anymore. I think they've been breached by our friends in the agency. I think have gone in.
I got no friends there.
Well, yeah. So the point being, they don't even show Apophis anymore. So if you go to the Sky Live, they don't even show Apophis.
What do you mean? How can they not show it? They're supposed to be tracking asteroids, and they just don't show you the biggest one?
Right, exactly. And that's what, and we're going to look at that tonight. So we're going to take a look at that. So this is what was happening, 2 weeks ago, 4 years ago. So this was March 28th of 2020. They have an impact in Akure, Nigeria. And the fact that this doesn't make the news is what makes it so remarkable. This should be National Geographic's photo of the year. This doesn't happen, right? You're almost what? You're almost 75, right? How old are you now? You're
52 last week.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Congratulations. Happy birthday. So at how many of these have you seen in your lifetime where
actually
ding, 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 we've got a breaking broadcast. Tommy, what's that? We got an asteroid here in Romania.
Well,
in your
funny,
lifetime, how many? How many?
That you should mention it, because I have seen one meteor crater, and actually you were there, so that was cool.
Yeah, so
and
that
I
was
think
it,
it's
right?
one more than most people have seen.
But I mean, even on television, meaning we never we're watching the Olympics and the guys on the ski jump and we're breaking the news here. It looks like an asteroid has impacted in Brisbane, Australia. And here's the hole, Tommy. What do you think of that? There's never been one of these ever in my lifetime, in your lifetime. And we're older than most of the people who watch the show. So right. If we've never had one of these and this doesn't make the news, that's too bizarre. That's not acceptable. It's like, well, how does this not make the news? Oh, there's more coming. So this was the first of them. So let's forge ahead. We've got, so this next slide, I don't want to run out of time before we get to, so this next slide is what happened yesterday. So yesterday on Twitter, this comes across my desk.
Right.
This next one. All right. And I'm like, whoa. And this is wave height. This is not temperature of the water. This is the height of the waves in the ocean. And all of a sudden, somebody sends this, and I see that, a couple people were talking about it. There's a video about it on YouTube, so I'm not the one who discovered it. But they're talking about something launched out of Antarctica, and they're talking about nuclear this. And I'm like, what? These people are out of their minds. I swear to God, some people are just nuts. And the things that they were coming up with, a gravity beam from the earth is being moved, and the gravity is where the gravity beam is attaching to the earth, and it's like, and I'm looking at it And with my bias, I'm looking at that and going, that's an 80-foot high wave? That's an impact. That's a
But so
meteor.
what is this system that reports this? Like, how does it get this information? Satellites or something?
So it gets it from various different feeds. And the name of the website is Ventusky or Ventusky.com. All right. So having a former Russian wife, we would both say Ventusky. So Ventusky.
Ah,
And
but what is this?
so it's a mapping system. So again,
Right
from
up
a
your
map
alley.
data perspective, right? So love this. And on the left hand side of it, you get to pick the different things you want to track, whether it's wind speed, temperature,
Oops.
and so I turned off all the temperature related stuff and went to wave height, and that's what I was tracking. So we don't want to get into there you
Right.
go. So we don't want to get into giving lessons on, but that's basically what I did, and then move the timeline, and voila, we see this thing. Now we're going to look at video of it. We're going to watch this with the patrons. So we go to the patron only part of the show. The patrons are going to get to see this thing appearing and all that. Well, I don't want to leave people hanging, because it turned out that initially I looked at this and said, well, this looks a hell of a lot like a meteor just landed in the ocean and created a huge wave. And this wave appears to be heading for the coast of Cape Town in Namibia. And that would be a pretty big problem. And so I'm on Twitter, it was last night, and I'm trying to find people in Cape Town and saying, guys, is there any sign of a tsunami there? Like, what the hell's going on? And sure enough, over the course of 4 or 5 hours, this tweet of mine now has 2.5 million views on Twitter. All right, so it goes pretty viral, and people are looking at it.
They noted it. Community notes.
Yes.
The dark oval reference in this tweet has been identified as a modeling error. But they're not yelling at you. They're just clarifying. That's pretty good, John. 2.5 million overnight. That's amazing.
And I debunked it before Ventusky did.
Whoa.
So now I shouldn't say I did. Yeah. So what happened was, one of our viewers, one of the people that follows me on Twitter, watches the show, sent me a private DM and says, dude, the same thing happened 6 weeks ago. Check this out. And there's like a link. And sure enough, back in February, we see the same kind of anomaly. And the thing is, if it's an 85-foot wave, it should be hitting the coast of Namibia and Cape Town, and it
tsunami
should be devastating.
Right.
And it's not happening. Right. So this gets back to David Hawkins and ground truthing, ground proofing. Right. And
ground truth.
Ground truth. So the instruments are telling us something. So we go to our friends in Cape Town. And sure enough, there's guys on Twitter who within 15, 20 minutes are like, dude, I'm in Cape Town. It's a sunny day. There's no tsunami. And so this is the ground truthing, and being able to, again, you don't default to something's wrong with the instruments.
Right.
You look at the instrument, you go, well, what the hell is that? For example, if you and I were doing an ocean crossing, and this is our chart, go back to the chart with the big black thing in it in the slide deck. So if you and I are crossing the ocean,
you avoid that.
Yeah, right. And all of a sudden,
you're not going to go into that and test it,
right? You'd be like, "Oh, don't worry about that.
I'm
That's
sure
nothing.
it's a mistake.
Just keep going. What are you, a wuss? Just keep going." Yeah. I mean, come on. And let's say you're doing 30 knots, and you're flying across the ocean. It's nighttime, and this shows up on the chart. You're just going to keep going, or you're going to go, whoa, drop the sails. Something's up. What's that? I mean, you got to figure it out. And the solutions that people were coming up with on Twitter were just so kooky. And what's fascinating, so again, it's just like last week's show with Shep. Turns out it's a glitch.
That's crazy.
But what happens? Where do I go to JPL? Because I think it's a meteor. And what do I find? A meteor. Dude, they didn't mobilize. They didn't mobilize the National Guard for an eclipse.
Right, of course not.
They
And they were shooting
mobilized.
the
So
dart
we
at
had
it.
more of them were coming. This period of time is called the Lyrid meteor showers. We're in them. In fact, it starts April 15th officially. But a Cure was March 28th, right? It showed up a little bit early. Sometimes they show up a little bit early. And what we have tonight that we're going to show the patrons is the data from JPL of the asteroid that passed Earth the day of the eclipse.
Huh.
They didn't mobilize the National Guard because there's going to be a shadow.
Right. Oh, maybe it's
Shadows don't
because
really
what's her name thinks the
shadows
moon
don't
is made of
yeah
gas.
the shadow yeah well then yeah she's made of gas, it seems. But in other words, an eclipse is a shadow, right? I've been to eclipses when I was a kid. Okay, you're in the thing, it's 4 minutes long, it's a shadow, and it's over. And you're like, okay, I was in the shadow. Woohoo.
Well, what was the National Guard going to do to a meteor anyway? I don't think they're going to shoot it.
No, so let's say a meteor lands in Nashville, Tennessee, where we had that explosion a couple years ago where that guy blew up that RV supposedly out of nowhere, right? And imagine a meteor hits there, and Nashville, Tennessee is just devastated. You don't want the national. You don't think it's going to be like
I guess they need to do
Hurricane
something.
Katrina,
rioting, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
they got to have them ready. Well, listen, John, we're out of time here, though. And speaking of the moon being made of gas, I don't know if did you get a chance to see this? I did a little tribute to what's her name. Here, let's play this.
The moon's a rock, you fool, all night, blocking out the sunlight. Moon's a rock, you fool, all night.
Dance the light away. Oh, take the light away. That's AI making me sound like Michael Jackson. I actually sent that to my friend Taj Jackson, Tito Jackson's son, Michael Jackson's nephew, and he said, "Ha ha, how you been?" So that was good. But anyway, John, people are going to join us right now for the sponsor exclusive segment of the show. People should get over to subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and Subscribestar and Patreon/crowdsourcethetruth. If people want to know if this public figure who's talked about on Wikipedia, George Henry Swigert, the inventor of the full duplex speakerphone. If you'd like to know if that guy was an Operation Paperclip Nazi, it's important that you sponsor these shows so that John and I can continue with this research. And we really appreciate everybody who's already sponsoring. You see how hard they're trying to stop us. I don't think it's because they don't like the pictures of the Emmy statue holding a COVID molecule, but we'll see everybody in